hired a special teams coordinator, and it just so happens that I'm in his now former city. Brant Boyer, formerly of the Jets, is now San Francisco's special teams coordinator. Boyer had been the favorite to grab this 49ers job, and now he is the winner of the 49ers job. So congratulations to Brant Boyer. The 49ers now have 2 of 3 coordinator positions filled. They're interested in promoting Clay Kubiak to offensive coordinator, but they do have Robert Saleh in as defensive coordinator and Brant Boyer as the special teams coordinator. He's been with the Jets since 2016, so he actually predated Robert Saleh. Saleh probably recommended Brant Boyer. We'll get the full scoop on this story as soon as we talk to Robert Saleh and the 49ers over the course of the next month or two. But Boyer interviewed, or his interview was reported shortly after it became known that Robert Saleh was very close to becoming the 49ers defensive coordinator. So I do suspect that those two things were tied together. I will say that Brant Boyer was highly successful in New York as the special teams coordinator. There were multiple top 5 finishes, a couple top 3 finishes for Brant Boyer, and if Robert Saleh was impressed with him, even if he didn't hire him, because Saleh didn't show up until 2021, I think that is significant. We're not too far from where Boyer and Saleh coached. This is the Oculus over by the World Trade Center in New York. This is not named that airport. This is the Oculus. This is by the old World Trade Center site. They've obviously built the 9/11 Memorial and the Freedom Tower, but they also built this, which is like a big mall and public transit combination here in New York. If you guys want to, I could step outside so you can see it's sunny, but it is a little bit chilly and it's a little bit windy, so I thought that this would be the cooler background here in New York. So Boyer's the special teams coordinator, and here's my main thing. The San Francisco 49ers need to successfully execute a top-down focus on special teams. It doesn't matter who the coordinator is if that does not happen successfully. Take the fact that Brian Schneider, the coordinator who they fired because they finished dead last in special teams efficiency this past year, Brian Schneider had been considered a good coordinator before he joined the 49ers. He was the special teams guy for Seattle for a decade, and they gave San Francisco a lot of trouble on special teams. But despite the fact that the 49ers have signed players on special teams, despite the fact that, you look at somebody like George Odom, Oren Burks, who's playing really well for Philadelphia right now. You look at several specialists that the 49ers have brought in, despite the fact that they have focused so heavily in actual players signing on special teams. I just don't think that the top-down attitude, which starts with Kyle Shanahan, has been good enough to consistently field a good special teams unit. And by that I mean, when's the last time the 49ers ran a fake punt? Like, they didn't call a fake punt. They last called a fake punt before the Shanahan era. Mitch Wishnowsky a couple years ago ran a fake punt, but it was improvised. I don't remember them doing anything tricky on kick return or on punt return. And to me, that is just a product of a mentality that thinks about special teams in don't screw it up fashion, instead of go out and win us the football game. Bill Belichick would encourage his special teams to go out and win the football game. The Rams, whenever they run a fake punt against the 49ers, are encouraging their special teams to go out and win a football game. San Francisco needs to start thinking in that mentality, because if you don't do that, then subconsciously it's going to wear on your special teams unit and you're going to be mediocre at best, which is what the results were under Brian Schneider. Mediocre at best. They were number 15 in 2022, his first year. Then they dropped to number 26 his second season in 2023, and they were number 32, and that led to him being fired this past year. They didn't renew Richard Hightower's contract after 2021 when they finished number 26. And guess what? Richard Hightower and the Jets finished number 5, and the Bears finished number 5 in special teams this past year. So I think this is very, very team dependent. You've got to have that overarching structure from the head coach on down supporting special teams, and that's going to be the big, big thing. Now, we'll see if Brant Boyer insists on bringing in kicking competition for Jake Moody, insists on bringing in his own kicker. That would obviously be contingent on a kicker being available. I think that the most likely scenario is that the 49ers keep Jake Moody on the roster and bring in that competition. But we'll have to hear from Brant Boyer on San Francisco's exact plan, because remember that Jake Moody is still under contract for 2 more seasons for the 49ers. So Boyer, the special teams coordinator, I can tell you a little bit more about him. Outdoors guy. I did some reading on him because I figured he was the favorite for this special teams coordinator job. Remember I said Boyer or Chris Tabor in the video the other day. Those are the 2 experienced guys that the 49ers interviewed. They also interviewed Chris Banjo and Jet Modkins, but those were both assistant special teams coordinators. Between Boyer and Tabor, you had real head special teams coordinator experience. And I think that's what the 49ers wanted. Experience has been a theme of the hiring cycle this offseason. Somebody saying I look super Euro. Well, yeah, that's because I'm in New York and we're flying to Paris today. And we're moving through the Oculus right now. See, I could even zoom out a little bit so you guys can see the majestic architecture here in lower Manhattan of New York. And this is just like I planned it. They've hired the former Jets head coach to be their defensive coordinator, and they've hired the longtime former Jets special teams coordinator to be their special teams coordinator. So I had to come to New York just to cover that, right? Brant Boyer, Robert Saleh both have to pack up. Now, I know I was at the Bills bar yesterday, and technically the only team in the actual state of New York is the Buffalo Bills, but, well, by name, right? New York Jets, New York Giants. Well, today we'll change the rules. We'll say that the Jets and the Giants are technically in New York, and I think that the name counts, especially for this video. Just too cool that I happen to be at the Oculus by the World Trade Center as we do this video. Somebody asked how the Jets special teams unit has been under Boyer. He's fielded several top 5, top 10 units. They haven't been great every single season, but I think a lot of special team success ends up being player dependent, right? You got to have the talent. A lot of the times the 49ers have had the issue of having so many injuries on the offensive or defensive side of the ball, especially on the offensive or defensive side of the ball, that it has a downstream effect on special teams. You know, when you have those injuries, then instead of playing your normal kick coverage guys, you're going to guys off the street for kick coverage, and it's a highly cohesive job, right? You have to have everybody in line, or else there's going to be a crease, and NFL athletes are good enough to exploit it. And I think that that has led to a lot of 49ers issues on special teams. And I think that whenever you look at a coordinator like Brant Boyer, who's had top 3 units, but then has also had units that have ranked in the 20s, you can probably go back to some roster difficulties. Mike, I can't see the whole text that you're sending me. I could only see like the first line. So if you could send me like one line at a time, maybe I'll be able to convey the information. Mike sometimes will feed me a cool stat. So I have to give credit to Mike. It's not always just me memorizing stats, walking around New York City, or in a couple days we're going to be walking around Paris. Oftentimes it's Mike getting the job done, but the problem is when it's emergency breaking news like this, it's hard to be able to read a screen. But Mike said that the cumulative EPA for the Jets from 2016 to 2014 on special teams was number 14. So as you can see, the good and the bad kind of balanced out, and they were slightly above average on special teams. And I'll tell you what, the 49ers would take that. They would take number 14 every single season. If they're number 14 in special teams this year, they might have made the playoffs. That's how bad the special teams unit was for the 49ers. They finished number 32, and they lost 63.8 expected points on special teams. 63.8. Their point differential was in the negatives by less than that. So if special teams had just been average, held serve, like we're talking 0 expected points, the 49ers would have been a winning point differential team, like a positive point differential team. So special teams absolutely had to be fixed for San Francisco. This is one of the steps in fixing it, but I'm just advocating they've got to do more, and it has to be from a coaching top-down focus level. You know, John Lynch defended the 49ers in the press conference after the season, saying, yeah, we have signed special teams guys like George Odom, like Oren Burks, but I think it's not just that. I do think you have to run a fake punt every once in a while. You do have to do something tricky, something aggressive, something out of the box every once in a while, because you want that energy to carry over to the rest of the special teams unit. Everybody's going to be focused on Jake Moody, and I get it. That's going to be the most high-profile special teams position that the 49ers will probably address this offseason. Even if Moody ends up being the kicker, I do think they're going to bring in competition. But remember that Moody was 13 of 14 last season before the high ankle sprain. Then he went 11 of 20 after he came back. So it's clear that the injury had a lot to do with his performance last year. And why did he get hurt? Because he was on kick coverage where DJ Dallas, the returner for the Cardinals, ran him over. So poor kick coverage, which is poor general special teams play, led to the injury of the 49ers kicker, which directly led to one loss against Arizona because the kicker got hurt, and then it led to a bunch of kicking problems after he came back from the high ankle sprain. And Moody having to make a tackle on kick return and getting hurt was not an isolated incident. The very next week, Matthew Wright, whom they signed to replace Jake Moody, got hurt in kick coverage making a tackle in Seattle. So the 49ers went through 2 different kickers in 2 weeks. I mean, they had to have 3 kickers in 3 weeks because of poor kick coverage. That was all part of the number 32 ranked special teams unit that gave up almost 64 expected points. Like, they're in the negative by 63.8 points. It was embarrassing last year. So you look at the new hire, Brant Boyer, and you say, it shouldn't be all that hard to do a little bit better. But I go back to the fact that it's not just going to be on Boyer. This is on Shanahan. This is on the 49ers as a whole. This is an organizational focus that really needs to begin with the head coach, really needs to begin top down. Everybody's got to be thinking of special teams as a potential asset to win a game, not just to avoid defeat. And then I think the 49ers will be in much better position on that side of the ball. Their highest ranking on special teams in the Shanahan era came, I think, in 2017. They might have been number 10 or number 11. That's back when the rest of the roster wasn't good. So they had to focus on special teams to pick up the slack. Now, in this modern era of good teams, the highest they've gotten is number 15 under Brian Schneider in 2022, and it's only regressed after that. Anyway, 49ers have 2 coordinators in place. Now we'll see what happens on the offensive coordinator side. Shanahan wants to promote Clay Kubiak. Shanahan's going to continue calling the plays. The 49ers have not yet formally announced that OC process conclusion, but they have formally announced the conclusion of the defensive coordinator process and the special teams coordinator process. Robert Saleh and Brant Boyer, both of the New York Jets in their last job. And speaking of New York, this is where we're at. We're at the Oculus, right by the World Trade Center in New York. It's a little bit cold outside. There's the Freedom Tower, actually. If I walk to the middle here, you could look up. The Freedom Tower, 1,776. 1,776 feet tall for 1776, obviously the year that the Declaration of Independence was signed. Somebody's asking what's going on in Paris, so I don't know, I'm not in Paris yet. I will be in Paris in a few hours, several hours. And since I'm in New York right now, the 49ers are signing Jets coaches, former Jets coaches. Maybe the 49ers will be signing somebody from Paris when I'm there. Just a little hint at a potential spoiler, or I'm just making that up to tie up loose ends. But I do think that we got lucky here while we were in New York. 49ers signed Saleh right before I left Nashville on the way to New York, and now they signed Brant Boyer as their special teams coordinator. It's funny that Brant Boyer coached here in New York, in the most urban city in America, even though he's a big outdoors guy. I think he's got a house in Montana. He said that Montana is going to be his forever home. He's a big fisherman. He's a hunter. Obviously, you're not doing much of that in New York City, but this is, I guess he was in New Jersey. You're not doing much of that in New Jersey either. But he did coach here, not too far away. Special teams since 2016. That's longer than the 10 years of Shanahan and Lynch with the 49ers. And now Brant Boyer is going to be headed back to the West Coast. So Margot, I believe, is shopping right now. I can answer some questions, and then we got to get to the airport. So toss in a few questions here as we talk about the 49ers and the special teams coordinator position. I think I've got the perfect spot to talk. I don't got people bugging me. Not a lot of 49ers fans, I guess, walking by at the Oculus, although I'm shocked that at some point, if I stay on long enough, I'm sure a 49ers fan who's here in New York City will swing by to say hello, but I may not be on long enough. If you're nearby, come and join the show. You're great. We can take this mic right here. I have a second mic. I can interview you. But toss in those questions. Mike, if you see a good question, can you text me? What I think of Seattle hiring Clint Kubiak. Well, Clint had a great start with New Orleans this past year, and then things really cooled off for the Saints. So, every situation is unique, and it's not just going to be up to the coordinator, and it's not going to just be up to the quarterback. It's going to be, football is a beautiful team sport, and one thing that makes it beautiful is that it's really hard to assign blame or credit to one individual person. It's usually a combination of a bunch of factors. I think Geno Smith is not good enough to win a Super Bowl for the Seattle Seahawks. I find it hard to believe that he's even good enough to win a division for the Seattle Seahawks. So Clint Kubiak might help some aspects of what Seattle's doing, but I still think that Seattle needs to upgrade its QB position to be a serious contender in the NFC West. You saw them slide toward the end of this season, and part of the reason that they slid is because Matthew Stafford of the Rams was able to deliver better performances down the stretch than Geno Smith, and in previous seasons, Brock Purdy better than Geno Smith. There's a debate. Who's the worst quarterback in the NFC West? Is it Geno or is it Kyler Murray? I would say that it's Geno, and I think that's a problem for Clint Kubiak. Questions, we are open to them here from New York City after the 49ers have hired Brant Boyer to be their special teams coordinator. And while you're at it, why don't you hit the like button? Because if you hit the like button, you help the channel. If you hit the subscribe button, you help the channel. You'd be surprised. So nowhere else do you get on-location reporting. We literally flew out to New York to show you the Bills bar during the AFC Championship game. Successfully did that, and we flew out here because I knew the 49ers were about to sign Brant Boyer from the Jets. So I had to finalize the negotiations. We're going to get him on the YouTube channel next. Brant Boyer is on his way to talk 49ers football right here from the Oculus. So hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, filter in your questions, and I'll filter them out, and I'll answer the ones that Mike sees fit when he texts me some of the questions, because I need them to pop open on the screen so I know what you guys are asking. AJ Simmons asks, is this a good hire? On paper, he's had an above-average special teams unit. He's coached a couple top 5 units with the Jets. Robert Saleh recommended him. Brian Schneider was a good coordinator too. Again, I'll say that the 49ers need to really re-emphasize their top-down focus on special teams. That's a big key of this offseason. It was a poor unit for San Francisco in 2024. I guess I'm gonna have to rotate around, show you guys the rest of the Oculus. You guys want me to go downstairs? No, I like it from here. If I go downstairs, we're gonna be in the mass of humanity. Now, you used to be able to walk all the way up to the edge, but I guess they don't want people doing lives and then falling over. So, Niner Faithful asks, what is going on with Staley? Do we know yet? I'm guessing that he won't be back, just because Robert Saleh is going to be able to pick his own staff. And if Robert Saleh can pick his own staff, then Brandon Staley doesn't seem like he would fit into those plans for the 49ers. Margot is somewhere in the direction of this camera. I said, hey, 49ers signed Brant Boyer. I'm going to go do a live, go shopping, don't spend too much money, and we'll reconvene at a later time. All right, Mike. What should I answer, Mike? Let me know. Brock Purdy deal happening soon, asks Zach. I find it hard to see a Brock Purdy deal getting done before the salary cap is even announced. We don't know how big the 2025 salary cap is going to be. We'll know at some point next month. So I think that will start the clock officially, but it still might be months from that point on. I'm not trying to sell you guys any hope of this being done sooner. It could be. It could be that they come together after the salary cap comes out and they figure it out, and this is done way ahead of time. But when they signed Garoppolo in early February back in 2018, 49ers had like hundreds of millions in cap space. Now it's different. Now they've got all these high-priced players under contract, and it's very possible to fit a big deal for Brock Purdy under the hood of the cap, but you've got to be really judicious with the cap hits and the signing bonus, which is going to obviously determine some of those cap hits because of the proration. And because of that, I think you want to know the exact number of the salary cap before you do anything crazy if you're the 49ers. Do I think that San Francisco is keeping Dre Greenlaw? If they can get him on a prove-it type of deal, absolutely. We'll see what the market on Dre Greenlaw is. I've heard varying things, and I don't think that anybody is really going to have a firmer answer until around the time of the NFL Combine. But that's where the agents and the executives are in the same spot, and that's typically where some progress is made. Somebody asked if Kittle would reset the tight end market. I think so. I think he's clearly the best tight end in the game. I think he deserves to be compensated as such, and I think that entering the lame duck year on his contract, it is a great time to re-sign George Kittle if you are the San Francisco 49ers. Same answer with Antano Hufanga as Dre Greenlaw. It's realistic to keep him and I think it is realistic to think of a prove-it type of deal to bring him back to San Francisco. I don't know exactly what that would look like, but again, the NFL Combine will start to clarify some of that value. My thoughts on a potential Sauce Gardner trade to take over for Ward. My one issue with Sauce is that he's a little light, and the 49ers really, Charvarius Ward in his prime year, 2022, 2023, with the 49ers was just an awesome tackler. He'd crack down from that corner position against the run, which is so important for this scheme, better than anybody. Missed fewer tackles. He had one missed tackle in 2022, so missed fewer tackles than any other regular corner in football. Can Sauce Gardner do that? I don't think so. It seems like he weighs 170 pounds, dripping wet. I think DJ Reed might be a more realistic option for San Francisco because he's a more hard-nosed player, a little bit more muscle. Built in Bakersfield, has been with the 49ers, is the one that got away. Robert Saleh really enjoyed having him in New York after having him at the start of his tenure in San Francisco. I think maybe DJ Reed fills out that corner position. Remember, the 49ers have 3 corners under contract, only 3. They've got Deommodore Lenoir, they've got Renardo Green, and they have Darrell Luter Jr., who's yet to really play corner in an actual game for San Francisco. So you're going to have to add guys at that position, right? There's no choice. Like the position room is essentially empty right now when it comes to depth. So who are they going to add? I think they'll add some through the draft. I think they'll add some through free agency. And then it just depends on the price range for San Francisco in free agency. The 49ers have a new special teams coordinator, Brant Boyer. But Shanahan has got to fix this as much as anybody else. It's not just on Boyer. It is about the organizational focus of special teams here from New York City. This is the Oculus right next to the World Trade Center. That's a cool angle. You can see the Freedom Tower right through the sliver above me. This is like a little transit station and a mall combined in New York City. Nobody's doing their live in a cooler spot, I can say that much. We're gonna be doing lives from Paris on the other side of this, so stay tuned. Good thing they hired the coordinator now. I was literally ready to wake up because it's a 9-hour time difference from Paris to the West Coast. I was literally ready to wake up at, I don't know, 2 a.m. if I needed to and do a live in the streets of Paris at night, but looks like I may be able to avoid doing that here over the next few days while we're over on the other side of the ocean. All right, any more questions? Let's go. Signed Mecole Hardman to be a main kick and punt returner because I guess Nico Remigio Nico Remigio has taken over that job for the Chiefs, the Cal and Fresno State punter product. Because Hardman used to do that, a lot of that for Kansas City. Hey, having a dedicated return specialist could be a step forward for the 49ers, absolutely. I think that for San Francisco, it's not just about the return game though. It's about the coverage game and obviously about the kicking game. And the coverage game really, really led to problems in the kicking game because that's how Jake Moody got hurt this past season. It was the kick coverage issue for San Francisco. Everybody's asking me about Europe, but I'm not in Europe. I'm in New York City. Europe is going to be in a few hours. So we'll do plenty of, what do you want to see in Paris? Let me know what you want to see in Paris. What do you want me to talk about? 49ers wide in Paris. 49ers wise in Paris. Do you want me to talk about Brock Purdy? You want me to talk about improving the offensive line? Let me know what you want me to talk about in Paris, and I will make it happen for you once we do get out there. I've talked about Drew Dahlman, the center from the Falcons, who's going to be a free agent this offseason a lot. It could be a good pickup for the 49ers. I interviewed Drew Dahlman, who's a Stanford product, back in 2021 before the NFL draft. And I talked to his dad, Chris Dahlman, who was Steve Young's center with the 49ers for that article. And so that would all come full circle if San Francisco did that. Are there any 49ers fans in Paris? If there are, comment on the video. Maybe we could run a meetup in Paris here over the next few days. One more look at the Oculus for those just joining. Injury update. There's nobody on IR anymore because the season's over. They're all just on the 90-man roster, but Trent Williams doing much better. He had a joint bruise in the ankle joint is what Kyle Shanahan said, or John Lynch said. But Trent's going to be healthy for 2025. Who else do you want to know about? Talanoa Hufanga, obviously not on the roster for 2025, but healing up, wasn't fully healthy. We're in that club at the end of the season. Dre Greenlaw, not under contract. He too is building back that endurance to be able to play more than 34 snaps in a season. Everybody asking about Jake Moody. He remains under contract with the 49ers. They haven't cut him. There's the Freedom Tower. Somebody asked, I would love to hear about realistic targets for the offensive line. I think Drew Dahlman is a realistic target for the offensive line if the 49ers decide to go veteran center. They could also go rookie center and keep Jake Brendel aboard to tutor that rookie center since Brendel is still under contract for a year. Somebody asking about Warner's foot and ankle. It was a fractured ankle. I think that will heal now that he's not playing on it every week. It's tough, because when we talk about offensive line, and that's what somebody's asking about acquisitions, it's not like offensive linemen typically walk around in free agency. You have to develop linemen in this league. They're in very high demand in this league. So you develop linemen, you draft linemen. Last year they did that with Dominic Pooney, and we'll see what else happens for San Francisco on the offensive line front this season. Yeah, you're not going to just go get Tristan Wirfs in Tampa Bay. Somebody's saying that. The Bucs have Tristan Wirfs. The Bucs would be very stupid to let Tristan Wirfs walk out of that building. I mean, you could even franchise tag him if you need him. He's, as a very valuable offensive tackle, he is one of the least replaceable players in all of football. Kind of like Trent Williams. When he gets hurt, 49ers really feel it. I am in New York City, guys. I know, I get it. It's live, so we have people joining. I said it at the start, though, and I'll say it again. I'm in New York City at the Oculus by the World Trade Center. Clint Kubiak, who the Seahawks got, is not who the 49ers try to promote to offensive coordinator. That's his brother. The younger brother, Clay Kubiak, is still technically with the 49ers. Kyle's trying to promote Clay Kubiak. Clint Kubiak signed with the Seattle Seahawks. Yes, Clay Kubiak remains the favorite to be the offensive coordinator. Yes, Saleh met the 49ers' new special teams coordinator, Brant Boyer, here in New York. They worked together from 2021 to this past season, 2024. Yes, we did just see the 9/11 memorial. It is very moving. It is gut-wrenching. I'm obviously not going to do a show from there. That's obviously it's obviously a place that I think everybody needs to come and see when they're in New York. Right next to here, by the way, we're at the Oculus and the 9/11 site and World Trade Center site, and Memorial is right next door. Bobby Slowick is a free agent, yes. He was let go by the Houston Texans. And apparently the Texans are interested in Chip Kelly to replace Bobby Slowick as the offensive coordinator. Michael Salazar, any thoughts on the playoff officiating? I mean, the NFL's got a little bit of a problem on its hands when fans are talking so much about the fourth down spot and the officials running in at different angles and then choosing the angle that was advantageous to the Chiefs. So it is what it is, though. Heartbreak for Buffalo. They felt it here in the state of New York. All right, guys, let's get some good questions in and let's send this show off the right way from New York. Do you guys want me to walk around a little bit? I can do that if that's what people want to see. I'm just worried that it's a little windy outside and I don't have the windsock on the mic. The running back position definitely did rise in value, at least to outsiders of the past 2 years. Saquon, by the way, Saquon Barkley turns 28 on the day of the Super Bowl. And judging by the way that Buffalo was able to run at will against Kansas City yesterday, 15 carries for, what was it, I think 86 yards in the third quarter. What's Saquon going to be able to do against Kansas City? That's a big storyline of this Super Bowl. So Christian McCaffrey's 28, Saquon's going to be 28 on February 9th when they do play the Chiefs. These are both insanely valuable pieces now, especially relative to how people denigrated the running back position before. All right, guys, everybody, thanks for watching. We'll give you one last look at the Oculus here in New York City. Maybe we can even walk up and take you guys outside. We'll take you to the streets of New York. There's a lot of you watching. I think that if we're already here, we can do this. Walking up the steps. And now out the door. Might be windy out here though. Appreciate it, thank you. There you go. I mean, it's not that cold. It's in the 30s. It's not like Green Bay cold. But there's still some snow on the ground, as you guys can see. I guess it snowed, I'm guessing, a few days ago. Maybe it's just been too cold for it to melt. It's not the West Coast, that's for sure. That's the outside of the Oculus that we were just in. And this is like the financial district. The World Trade Center was behind me, that's the site. You can walk a little bit this way. Get out of the big crowd. But it is a nice, crisp January morning. Is it still? No, it's not morning anymore. It's past noon here on the East Coast. It's almost 1 o'clock. So we're going to be headed to the airport in a little bit. I'll write about the special teams coordinator for the San Francisco Standard, and we'll go from there. It's actually nice outside. Not cold at all. Anyway, Brant Boyer, new 49ers defensive coordinator, comes from the new 49ers special teams coordinator, comes from the New York Jets. So does Robert Saleh, 49ers new defensive coordinator. They have so far this offseason rebuilt 2/3 of the top positions in the coaching staff between Saleh and Brant Boyer. Remember, the defense finished number 26 for San Francisco, and the special teams finished number 32, dead last. Makes sense that they fired Brian Schneider and moved Nick Sorensen off of his defensive coordinator role and replaced those two with Robert Saleh at defensive coordinator and Brant Boyer at special teams coordinator. That's your show for today. Saying hello to everybody back on the West Coast or wherever in the world you might be. So long from New York City.